What is Muskism, and how important is it to all of us in the way in which we lead our lives today?
So we define Muskism as the promise of sovereignty through technology. And the case we make throughout our book is that Musk is not so much in the business of selling cars, rockets, or satellites, so much as he sells the idea that in an increasingly unstable world, both individuals and nation states can fortify their self-reliance and resilience by plugging into his infrastructures. But of course, in doing so, they become even more dependent on his infrastructures. And you can really see this as a through line throughout his career. Take the example of SpaceX, which gets its start in the early years of the war on terror as a key government contractor, helping Donald Rumsfeld's Pentagon put satellites into space. Now, 20 years later, Starlink is the main revenue model for SpaceX. And when you look at Starlink's major use cases, it's military, it's also first responders, public safety who need to be operating in remote environments and also in times of conventional grid failure. So we really see this as a through line throughout Musk's career.
Quinn, you guys also compare Musk to Fordism. Henry Ford, assembly line techniques, just standardization absolutely changed manufacturing and ushered in this system of mass production that still kind of defines American capitalism and especially defined the 20th century capitalism. When you compare that to Elon Musk, where are they similar? Where are they separate? And is Elon Musk the Henry Ford of the 21st century?
Yeah, thanks for having us. Fordism is a term that was coined about exactly 100 years ago. And people were not just talking about the factory, but they were talking about the world outside the factory, right? So it was a world of mass production plus mass consumption, in which doing things on the assembly line was also about the nuclear family. It was about intergenerational upward mobility. It was about collective bargaining agreements. So there's a kind of social contract inside of Fordism that was very interesting to us because we wanted to ask, if you look at Musk, what's his social contract, right? We know that he has his group of reply guys who can even monetize their feed. We know he has investors who are very interested in his businesses. But how do you scale that? Is it possible to build something as stable as the 20th century model, in which there was a kind of a virtuous cycle of workers being able to afford the products, when, as Musk is doing, you're kind of promising to make a lot of those workers obsolete? And you seem to have a very selective idea of who gets to be in the social contract and who gets to be out. So the way that Fordism has been described as a kind of philosophy of social peace, we think of one of the strange things about Musk is he seems to be preaching a kind of ideology of social war. He almost seems to be drumming up kind of antagonisms and frictions as a way to better sell those insulating technologies to make you safe inside of your Tesla or SpaceX dome, you know, when the social unrest begins, when climate breakdown begins. So it's a very tenuous kind of social contract we see. And in the last chapter of the book, we talk about Doge and State X as a kind of way to test the theory. Like, can Musk become a real techno king, as he is officially described at Tesla? Or do normal politicians like Trump actually still have an important role to play in the model? How far can Silicon Valley govern directly?
Quinn, let me stay with that because I think there's been a lot of fascination about Elon Musk's engagement with politics, and you write about state symbiosis in the book. That is, we have Elon Musk presenting himself as a real libertarian, doing things outside the realm of government, and yet we've seen him obviously cozy up to this president. I don't know what the state of the relationship is, what their state of the relationship is today, but drill in on that if you could, the way that he sees his companies, his empire interfacing with government.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything we were trying to do with the book was to really change the conversation specifically around this. So we really think that the notion that Musk, or really anyone in Silicon Valley in the leadership class, is a libertarian is really kind of a misleading, almost a red herring. Certainly someone like Peter Thiel had his moment when he preached that kind of ideology, but Musk actually never did. What's actually fascinating about following Musk's career from the 90s, when he starts a company called Zip2, few people remember, which relies on what? The new government developed service of GPS. That was military technology, and he taps into that and makes that a commercial facing product. SpaceX, Tesla, Department of Energy loans, zero emission vehicle credits. He's always actually been happy and open about using the backstop of the state, thinking about the government as a primary client, And in this era of generative AI becoming really the investment story and the growth story for the tech sector, you can't live without the government, right? You need a friendly state. You need someone who's going to open up federal land for data center construction, who's going to clear the path in regulatory terms for you to get your way. So in fact, we don't see a contradiction when Musk enters government. We see it as a kind of a test of how far the state symbiotic relationship can go without becoming a parasitic one. So Musk works when he works because he actually increases the capacity of states to do things. When it tips over into parasitism, then it becomes a kind of obstructing crony-style capitalism, and it stops working for both partners, as we've seen, indeed, many times in the Musk-Trump relationship.
Ben, we've only got a little over a minute left, but I also want to ask you about the cult of the Musk personality and the whole ethos around him and how that's folded in with the political climate and how that's impacted everything we've just talked about. Can Elon Musk, the businessman, exist without the other half of that? Do they feed each other or do they conflict with each other?
Well, one way to think about this question is Musk's relationship to science fiction. I think a lot of commentators, observers of Musk have noticed that he often cites science fiction as a major influence. We actually see Musk as a science fiction author or narrator of a sort, because from the beginning, from the 1990s when he makes his first fortune as a dot-com entrepreneur, he's very good at securing investor confidence by telling stories about the future. And these future stories are on the one hand fantastical, but on the other hand have a kernel of plausibility such that investors are willing to help give him the money to go build that future. We actually describe this dynamic as financial fabulism. And over the years, he finds new venues, new forums for this financial fabulism. Social media arguably supercharges it, where he can speak to not just, institutional investors, but he can move markets with memes. He can post about Dogecoin, the cryptocurrency, and the price of Dogecoin goes up. He can post about Tesla and the price of Tesla goes up. So that has become so integral to his business that it's infrastructure, essentially.